A book came out. It's called Swap. And it's basically the Evan Gershkovich story, the Wall Street Journal reporter. And it's interesting to hear you talk about this because they talk about how it's all intertwined with like Paul Whelan and Brittany Griner and kind of how the Cold War era spy swaps sort of emerge now, and how because the U.S. changed their policy from not negotiating to now negotiating for people, Putin was like, okay, well, let's do it. And so it's interesting to hear you discuss this because, for example, Brittany Griner, they released, when Brittany Griner got locked up, there was another guy, Paul Whelan, who was also locked up at the same time. And Biden got a lot of flack because Brittany Griner was an athlete and Paul Whelan, was some white dude that was a former Marine, and Brittany Griner got out like that. And Biden took a lot of heat for that. But the reason why, and this is relevant to what you were talking about, is that Putin and the Russians said, that guy is a spy. So only if you give us a spy will we let him go.
Yeah.
But they let Brittany Griner go for Maria Butina, and that was a quick swap. And
wasn't that Victor Boot?
Well, I think Victor Boot was who they let go for Paul Whelan, I believe. Or maybe it was Victor Boot. Oh, no, the Kenyan.
I think it was the other way around.
Yeah. So they gave up somebody for Brittany Griner, but they forced Paul to confess to being a spy, even though he wasn't in Russia. And then in return, everybody was like, oh, he's a white guy. That's why they're not giving him up. That's why Brittany Griner got the attention, because Biden's a Democrat, when in reality, Russia gets a say too. And they wanted a spy in return. So I'm curious from your perspective, you don't think that you could kind of fall into the same sort of thing where it's like that, they require a spy. It's like, well, we got a spy now. It's just, it's pieces, right? It's leverage.
Correct. But you got to keep in mind, was Paul Whelan apprehended in Russia?
Yes. Oh, that's
the big difference.
Yeah.
That's the big difference. Is it worth creating an international incident to reach into another third country, especially a country that might be NATO or a country that might be neutral or something else, right? To seize what you need. If it's a true CIA officer, right? For example, in Shadow Cell, the operational structure that we developed, which is why Putin is doing what he's doing now, the operational structure we developed was a cleansing route. Meaning we're going to operate in one place, but we're going to actually live in a different place. And then when we travel between where we live and where we operate, we go through a third place. Mm-hmm. We do the doc swap in the third place. We change alias in the third place. We make all references of travel one or the other, binary. So either it's travel to and from our place of living, or it's travel to and from our place of operating, so that no matter who reverse engineers us, they never see a connection between all three spaces.
Right.
When you've built that kind of operation, 100% it becomes worth it to palladium poison somebody in the third location, because you have no legal grounds to stand on. You have no way of dodging the international incident if you apprehend them from a third country. You're basically doing what we did to Osama bin Laden. You're invading Pakistan, an ally.
Well, they got some explaining to do.
They got in trouble for that, so you're right. So you're invading a third country to apprehend a threat that's a threat to you, but not threat to that country, and then you have to explain it on the back end. Mm-hmm. When you have your operational outcome completed, when bin Laden's dead, who cares? Now you're like, Pakistan, we're sorry. We'll spend the next 2 years saying we're sorry, and here's a little bit of extra aid, and here's a little bit of this, and here's a little bit of that, and here's some favorable trading agreements, and you're good. But when it's something where you're caught in the act, it's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, it's also like the bin Laden one's kind of an extreme example.
It is.
Fucking Osama bin Laden,
Right, which matters to us.
He was living next to, maybe I'm misremembering this, tell me if I am, but he was literally living within eyesight of their military base that's like our equivalent of fucking Fort Bragg.
Yes. I've heard the same thing.
They knew.
They knew
he was there.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, there it is. Osama bin Laden was living in a large compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan, less than a mile from the Pakistan Military Academy, West Point.
So if you're going to go into a third country to carry out an operational objective, you better have a really good reason, because you're going to have to defend it afterwards.
That was the very first clip I ever made of you. That was the first one that went, where you were talking about you being a third country so that you can go into a second country to get into the main country.
And you can clean the route the whole way, man.
Yeah.
It's just so much fun to me. Espionage is so much fun to me because it's real world chess. And you know that they're going to find you, and you know they're going to backtrack you, and you know that they're going to look all the way back through the flight records. They're going to find you. They're going to find you in fucking, you name it. Let's say that you're American, living in Canada, targeting Russia, traveling through whatever, Sweden. They're going to find you going back to Sweden. They're going to see that it's a dead end. They're going to know it's operational. But there's nothing they can do about it.
What happened in that last mission at the farm? Because like you said, you were saying this a while ago, but you went through the entire thing. Every part of CIA training, surveillance, detection, regular surveillance, going into a city, doing all the stories you've told in the past. And then something happened on the last one that then eventually led to someone on the board not liking you and stopping you from being a full case officer.
Yeah. So in the last and one of the final exercises, you have what's known as a multi-meeting exercise where you develop the full life cycle of a target source. So whereas other exercises are different lifespans, or they're like segments of the lifespan of an asset development case, this one was a full lifespan, so from beginning to end. And shortly, like right towards the end of the actual developmental cycle, you're supposed to learn how to pitch and recruit and start setting up clandestine meetings with a target. And clandestine meetings are different than public meetings, and there's all sorts of tradecraft stuff in there that we can talk about. But in that meeting, in that session, I let my target take control of when and how we would meet, which is a clear violation of who's in control of the relationship. But at the time, I was so excited because I thought I was like nailing it. Just like anybody who's ever been excited because they thought they were doing a good job and then they fucked up at the end. I thought I was doing a good job. And then as we were kind of agreeing to the terms of our relationship, I let him take control of when and where we were going to meet next. Because he's not a real asset, he's a role player. As a role player, he could take that back to the other role players and say, my guy fucked up. Here's what he did wrong. And then to teach me the mistake that I made, they set up an apprehension and an interrogation for me. So when I went to the next meeting, I was essentially arrested in character, and then I was interrogated in character by my own teachers and by my own staff.
It's kind of strange to think about. I don't know. This one was different than other stories, like when they literally drop you in a city and yes, there are role players, but you're running from them. And so you literally really have to steal things out of real stores. Like it's real.
Right.
Whereas this one, the person is a trainer who has to put on an Academy Award-winning performance to make this real enough for you to feel like you're actually playing the psychological game. Like it's a very strange thing.
It's a strange thing, but you also have to remember that we live in a false reality the whole time we're at the farm. We have no access to the outside world. The outside world has no access to us. The only time we exist in the outside world is when we get a pass to leave the base where the farm is held.
CIA believes that all people are born with a spy secret superpower. For some people, that means they can win deals. For others, they can spot liars. Some can even seduce lovers. I built a free 3-minute test to help reveal to you exactly what your secret hidden superpower is. All you have to do is click on the link in the description below, take the test, and start using your spy superpower to stay ahead of 99% of people.
Or when we literally carry out an exercise outside of the borders of that base, when we go into a downtown city area to meet somebody in a coffee shop. But it's not like we're going to have a conversation with the barista or meet somebody new on the walk, because we're running a surveillance detection route the whole way there. We're running a surveillance detection route the whole way back. So we're never leaving our bubble of reality. So it's the weirdest thing to admit to. When you go into a contrived space for about 14 days, you're kind of chuckling under your breath, like, oh, this is so cheesy. Like, look at the bad tape player news broadcast that they're playing. And they've played that same news broadcast for the last 20 years. And look at how cheesy it is. And here's like the 5th time that we're reading a newspaper that's just printed out of the printer in the office, and all these fake incoming sources of information. And you're like, oh, this is kind of like cheesy. For about 14 days, that shit's cheesy.
For 14 days? It's about 14 seconds when you took us in that fucking warehouse. And that was never cheesy.
Because you start to adapt to the reality that you're in. So after 14 days of, you eat at the cafeteria, you do this, you do that, whatever else, you've still got months of training ahead of you. So by the time you're 4 months in, the fucking newspaper is the printout from the office.
I see what you're saying.
And the bad tracking that's happening on the tape player is the real news story from today. And it's all anybody talks about. And everything that you're doing inside your station, inside your studio, inside your peer group, it's all so real. So when an instructor pulls you into a classroom to interrogate you, it's fucking real. It is so strange, man. But you've had the experience now to know, like, you knew you weren't going to get hurt. Back in the back of your brain, but in the front of your brain, you started convincing yourself of something very different.
Oh, there were a few times where I was like, oh, not sure what we signed up for here. I didn't know they were coming up. We'll talk about it later. I don't want to get into this now. But for example, when they were coming over to check the pulse on the fingers, which, I didn't know that was like a thing. I thought Trevor was about to break my fingers. And I was like, oh, fuck, I need those. No, wait a minute. I was almost like, cut, but I couldn't do that because you're so disoriented. Maybe that's different, like when you're being kidnapped right away or whatever, but now that you explain it, I'm almost surprised it would take 14 days just to kind of get yourself immersed, believing that atmosphere, because the human mind, to your point, does adapt quickly to surroundings.
It's about how it's resourced, right? When you are well-resourced, and we were all very well-resourced. Remember, we were going into multiple months of training, and in those multiple months of training, we're exhausted by the end, and we're cracking by like the last 30 to 45 days, but they need us to make it through hundreds of days of training. So we come in well-resourced, and for the first few months, you stay well-resourced. You get full nights of rest, you get really good meals, you get, you're taught academically something in a classroom that you can adapt to, you can take on, you can practice. So you're kind of like walking, or you're, what's it called, crawling, before you can walk, so that you have enough energy barely to run at the end.
Right.
That's why for 14 days we were fine, because we were well-resourced. We knew enough. We could still remember what happened 5 days ago. We still knew that there was a new movie coming out. By month 4, you have no fucking idea what the new movies are that are coming out. You don't even know that there are movies out, because there are no movies that get advertised on the internal CCTV.
And how was it? 4 months total?
It's many months. It's a classified number. It's a classified number, so I can't share it, but there's all sorts of easy Google searches you can do that will tell you what's popular.
It's so funny that like people at home can now go Google that, but you just can't say it right
Well,
here.
what I love is that I promise you CIA is going to be watching this. They're going to watch all the promo stuff for the book.
Yeah.
And they're going to literally hear you say, like you said earlier, I've been talking to you for a long time and you've never explained these details. Like, fucking there you go, CIA. I told you I wasn't doing it.
I was paid to say that. I just want to point that out. Gave me $1,200 and I accepted.
There's the bus.
And I work for Russia. Just kidding. Don't ever
air that.
Don't air that too far, because that'll be taken out of context real fast. But either way.
For Russia.
So you got in, when you get to this last one, you've been immersed into it for however fucking long you were. And you describe it. You were feeling really good about yourself. You felt like, I'm in control. This guy's doing exactly what I want. And then, the air gets sucked out because, like you said, they end up abducting you and taking you back for interrogation. And it was like, you describe it in a way in your book that's almost like, you're like, fuck, like just got the wind knocked out of you. And there's nothing else after this. Were you thinking to yourself at the end of that interrogation, like, oh my God, they're not going to let me be a case officer now?
There was a big piece of me that was thinking that as time passed, as like hours turned to days, that became the stronger thought. But if the closest thing I can compare it to is anybody who's ever been on the cusp in college between making it or not making it to the next year, passing or not passing a class, and you're like, did I get that C minus or did I get that B plus? Did I hit the score that I needed, or am I fucked? That's really what it felt like. I was like, okay, I fucked up. I know I fucked up. I know this is bad, but is this like D minus bad, or is this like C plus bad? How bad is this? Because I don't know, because it's all subjective to the fucking the instructors. And I know that if enough instructors like me, they're going to make it more C plus. And if enough instructors don't like me, they're going to make it fucking D minus, right? So I don't know where I land right now on this pivotal, massive exercise that was worth the majority of my, of my college grade, if you will. So it's super, super parallel to what we've all experienced in college. And that's where I sat. Like, am I about to graduate, or do I have to do summer school? Except there is no summer school. So am I about to graduate, or am I about to spend the rest of my life without a degree?
Where is Jihi in the program during all this? She became a targeter. So what's her track?
She aced everything. Yeah. Jihi was a superstar, and she's She's smart enough not to appear on the internet very often. That's how smart she is, right? So case officer training is probably 4 times longer than any other training that happens at the agency. Longer than analyst training, linguist training, staff operations training, tech training, anything. Because there's so much of it that goes into keeping you secure, keeping your assets secure, keeping the information secure, and then how to operate in different environments. So Jihi went through her training course months before, or she started her training course while I was still at the farm and finished months before I was done.
But you guys came in at the same time. Okay.
We
So
started
it's
at
just
the
a
same
totally
time.
different track.
Correct. Totally different parallel
What's she
track.
under again?
She's a targeter.
Yeah, but is that under another subcategory, or is it literally a category just called targeting?
Targeting, exactly. So under the National Clandestine Service, which is now known as the Director of Operations, you have multiple title tracks underneath there. There's special skills officers. Those are kind of your paramilitary guys, as well as some other various special skills like doctors. Then you have your targeters. You have your mission planners, which are called staff operations officers. You have your tech ops officers. You have your logistics officers. You have your budget and finance officers. You have your targeting officers. So all of them fall under the clandestine services, and they all have their own different training tracks underneath, with the idea being that once you kind of finish your training track, you're able to all play nicely together in the real world. But like what a budget and finance officer does in the real world is completely different than what a targeter does in the real world.
Of course. So you're under the you were at the farm to be under the case officer part, and then they come out to you at the end and say board didn't pass you.
Yep.
So
you go back, like it's the walk of shame, dude. It's a horrible feeling because everybody else there is passing. By the time you get to the end, the real riffraff get cut about halfway through. The people who really can't keep up get cut at what's called the first round of murder boards halfway through. So the second half, everybody's close, everybody's friends, everybody can do the tasks. It's just whether or not you meet the subjective desire of people wanting to work with you. And just like you said, like, I'm kind of a dick. People don't want to work with me. So I'm not surprised they got cut at the end in hindsight. But at the time, I thought I was pretty shit hot. So I get cut, and it's the walk of shame. I call Jihi, and I tell her what happened, and she's like, I can't believe that happened. In my group, in my classroom, only one other person got cut out of the, say, 25 of us that were there. And he was so devastated, he just walked into the woods and didn't come back. He took a bottle of scotch and a fat cigar and walked into the woods.
like at the farm.
At the farm. And the fucking security people had to go find him after he didn't show up for like the rest of that day or the next morning's check-in or in it. And he wasn't in his hotel room because we all live in like this mock hotel room. He just walked off the fucking campus and then was deemed like, what's the word I'm looking for?
Psychologically unfit.
Unfit for retention.
Yeah.
I don't think they use the word psychologically, but unfit for retention. So they took him out of the NCS and they were like, hey, would you rather do something else in the agency? Like, would you rather make fake passports or be a courier or something like that? And he was like, I'm fucking done with this. And he left. And he went and created an incredible life for himself as like he goes back and forth between Miami and Paris, putting together these badass nightclub parties. And
So he works for fucking Diddy.
there you go.
You're telling me this was a CIA operation?
I feel like he made a better choice than I did because he's been making a lot more money for a much longer
I
time.
wish we had that on camera. Wow. Yeah. Gio was a little shocked by that one. I do. All right. That's a rabbit hole. I feel like that was staged. I feel like he walked off into the woods. So they're like, oh, Jimmy's crazy. And they go in. They're like, son, you ready to work for the agency now? And it's Diddy like, yeah, get over here, boy.
Back in the day.
Yeah.
Back in
Oh,
2007.
you boy.
That's
You
so
going
funny.
From Miami to Paris. Wow. Okay. So did it all, after they say no to you and you walk back to the hotel or whatever, was there, I don't know, it was tough to tell what was like 30,000 in the air, feet in the air, you writing it now, thinking about it versus what you were thinking in the moment. Were you immediately thinking those things to yourself? Like, I'm my own worst enemy. I got in my own way. My dick got too big, and that's why this happened.
No, just like most of us don't think that when we fuck up.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
I'm thinking this place is so unfair. I've got to escape the shame. I'm not gonna like. We all get bussed in and we all get bussed out. Like it's a fucking summer camp, right? And when we get bussed out, there's no fucking way I'm gonna sit on a bus with hundreds of other people who have all passed. And they're all going to be talking about their next assignment and their first assignment. And they're all going to be making plans to talk to their assignment officers and the office that they're going back to. And I don't have any of that shit because I'm going back into a bucket of people where the question is, do we even retain these people? That's where I'm going back to. I'm going back to check into an HR office under an HR officer who's going to be like, we're going to see if we can find a place for you to land, right? What the fuck? And in my mind, I'm like, I finished all of the training. I've been through the hardest thing you guys can throw at me. And it was just whether or not 7 fucking old men, all of which were men, 7 old men chose whether or not to keep me on as a case officer, certify me as a case officer, or not certify me as a case officer. And you're telling me that because one of them voted on the wrong side, that I'm not only not a case officer, but I'm not even useful, not even worth keeping? Like, it was a horrible feeling. So all I was like is I got to get the fuck away from this, and I'm on my own. I got to get away from this. I can't trust these people. If this is how the whole system works, I can't trust this place. I got to find a way to make my own life. But I'm in this serious relationship with Jihi, who's a fucking rock star. And when I come back, she understands the system. She understands the process. She understands how flawed it is. I take this long kind of minute to not go back to CIA. They're smart enough to grant us an extended leave after we finish the farm. They give us 60 days off. And they're like, you have 60 days off to kind of prepare yourself for your next assignment or to, get over your fucking hissy fit when you don't make it. And that's exactly what I did for my 60 days. And Jihi was just there with me every step of the way, supporting me one way or the other. And I just, at the end of those 60 days, I was like, if I do anything else, if I go work for Booz Allen Hamilton, if I go be a barista, if I go do something else, I'm going away from Jihi. So I might as well go sit in that little pool at the HR office and see what shit job I get.
So we're going to explain how this happens in a little bit, but this ends up coming full circle. And you end up getting to do these things under a different title effectively. And you get to test the same kind of thing in the field in the scariest of ways and pass the tests with flying colors, which I think is cathartic for you. However, in the short term at this point, before any of that happens, I can only go off what you wrote here, but it would seem to me that minus, some regular human flaw, people on the board don't like you and relationships and stuff like that, this was a situation where they probably looked at you, they probably looked at all the other stuff you did at the farm, and you probably had very high grades. They looked at you physically and said, this dude can pass as every race known to man, including, like, if I pulled your eyeballs a little bit, Asian. Like, you could do literally anything. Like, you got a lot of the right emotions, the anxieties, all of it. Like, you're like almost an IVF test tube, like, genetic baby of what they would look for in a case officer. But there's one thing that's a problem, and that is you had a high probability of being a star on that wall. Because you
didn't follow orders.
You were a cowboy, and when you wanted to do something, you would do it and just go 1,000 miles an hour, and it cost you on the last drill. And they're like, well, that might cost them in the field. So in some ways, that could have been it. Do you think that could be an explanation?
I absolutely do, but it took me a long time to come to any explanation where CIA was acting in my best interest.
Right.
Just like every American out there, it's gonna take a minute before you stop to realize that CIA might be acting in your best interest.